Hello, everyone. We are back for another installment of our artist interviews. I'm here with the cast of Mashup the Musical 2, and they're all joining us from different locations around the maritime area, I'm pretty sure. So we are looking forward to asking them some questions about how their show is going to work this year. So hi, guys. How are you all doing today?
Hi.
Hi, Kennedy.
In our previous interviews with the artists, we've been asking them how they've gotten their start in the theater community where they live. But for you four more specifically, we want to know, how did the four of you join forces to make such an iconic team that is the Mashup team?
I've worked with Scott for years and years and years, and over the years, he's mentioned to me a few times, hey, you should do some improv with us, and I've always said I'm terrified of that, and I wouldn't be any good. I can't think on my feet, and no, whoever is sneezing, that's great. So he said, well, why don't we do a Fringe show? And I had always been really intrigued by Fringe and supportive. And, when I moved back here from Ontario, I started volunteering with it. And Scott said, look, this will be scripted. You don't have to worry about doing things so much on the fly. And then, we, of course, Scott has worked so many times, and I've worked with her too, with Dayna. And then Scott and I were really fortunate to work with Dino last spring. That's when I was introduced to Dino. Anyway, fortunate. Yeah. In Little Shop of Horrors. So knew that Dino was really talented, and just a group of people that, were keen and energetic and wanting to do some fun stuff, make people laugh.
Yeah, I think one of the things, Dayna and I worked together Dayna and I were in our first St. John Theatre Company show together at the exact same time, and did musical, and we got to know each other so well because we did the first local show on Rogers Television, which was its own, it's funny, you were in the small city of St. John, but you do these just oddball experiences, and you just kind of fall in your lap, you're like, sure, I'll do that thing. And so it's great, and Kizzy and I met, and then in later shows. But when we were working on, especially when we were working on Little Shop, and I was thinking here are all these young people who are really they've come out to audition and they want to do stuff. I really should make an effort to try to grab a couple of them and figure out a way to get them to do some other things, because I know I've been very fortunate in my time, because I've been the guy who could just I've never had that voice in the back of my head to say, oh, you shouldn't do this, you won't be able to do this. I've always said yeah, I'm going to do it, I'm just going to do that. And I know not everyone shares that lack of voice, and some people do have all the talent they need, but they just need a hand to kind of say, go out on stage and do it. So I think doing things like this, when I was Dino's age, I had people who encouraged us to do what they were called, at the time they called them cabaret shows, and you wrote it really quickly and put it on stage in front of 70 or 100 people, and it was all you. And that was such a big step up for me, and I thought, other people and I know Dayna hasn't done a lot of shows like this before we did, that she's done a lot of big shows and whatnot. So getting people together who, already have some talent and you have good chemistry, it makes good sense. And we've actually brought two new guest stars with us for this show, Hannah Clark, who I've been wanting to do something with forever because she's such a amazing young person, and Peter Boyce, who is just super talented. Kennedy, you know what it's like to be on a fun team. It's one of the best feelings in life, and it happens so rare. So I'm just glad we did join forces. So who knows where it can go from here. We're just enjoying the ride and having fun with it.
This show this year is a sequel to your show last year, Mashup the Musical. And for those out there who may not have seen that show, if you wouldn't mind giving us a synopsis of what your show is, what your plan is for it, and any other details you'd like to share with your potential audience.
So Mashup is a concept that we kind of developed, I think, in the wings of other musicals that we do by participating with the theater company. And we would often be joking around at rehearsal because we've done a number of musicals together. We'd often say like, oh, ha, 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 wouldn't it be funny if this character was in this scene right now doing that? Like, for example, when we did, even though it's not a musical, when we did, oh shoot, what's the witchcraft one again?
Crucible?
Crucible, yes. When we were doing the Crucible, we were all laughing about what would happen if instead of it being the Crucible, it was noises off. And as people were arriving at the house, they were opening and closing doors and be like, is there a witch in here? There's no witch here. Oh, you forgot your cross. And then we started and just, again, you know, it's like improvisation. Good ideas just happen. You can't kind of force it to happen. Good ideas just happen. I said, well, you know, wouldn't it be fun if we just did all this, like if we just took two musicals and forced them together and see kind of how would the characters react if both of the worlds had to make sense. So that's what we did. And we did shows. We start by picking shows that each of us have always wanted to sing, because you want to do the song anyway, even if you're going to rewrite it. And then we pick, you know, good matches for what tonally might be a good match. So you have the sweetness of Annie, which we did last year. Annie, you know, and a very big recognizable song. But we match that up with Chicago. So you have the sweetness of the orphanage with the crime and corruption of gangster in Chicago.
County Jail.
And you end up with a very iconic four different Annies on stage, all snorting cocaine and ultimately gangland style murdering. Sorry, spoilers for anyone who hasn't seen that.
A family show, to say the
least. Yeah. I mean, if you can't laugh at mild gangland style murder, what can't you laugh at?
Right.
So we're continuing that idea this year. We just basically we try to fill the 50 to 60 minutes with 3 or 4 mashed musicals. So this year we're doing The Little Mermaid in Hamilton. So it's going to be The Little Mermilton. And we've got Jesus Christ Superstar and My Fair Lady. So it's My Fair Jesus Christ Superstar. And then we've got the best, which we're saving for the last, which is The Sound of Music and Rocky Horror Picture Show, which is The Sound of Rocky Horror Music.
I'm really looking forward to that one.
They're all really good because we use elements of kind of making fun of the shows. We make fun of ourselves, and just whatever is funny, we like to do.
You're rhyming off. Scott's rhyming off all these titles, and you know, even as he's saying them, I'm laughing because when we rehearse, we have so much fun, and I think that's what, for me anyway, that's what keeps bringing me back. Like I can't say no to working with these people, including Drew and Tegan, because it's just so much fun.
And that's what the Fringe is all about too, is you don't always have to take yourself seriously. You can have a bit of fun, and that's what we like to do. We like to give artists a platform where they can kind of stretch out and like have a new experience that they might not have had access to previously.
Yeah.
So that's really great. And spinning off of that, has the concept for your show had to change or be altered because of what's going on with the COVID-19 pandemic? And what have you done to work around some restrictions that might have been in place in the past or right now?
I think we're good. We didn't know early on because everything was developing. Originally, we thought we might have to develop, and we were preparing for, at least I was, a sort of a video style. Like we would do a number of the things like we did for that St. John Theatre Company fundraiser, where we developed a 1 song long video. And we thought maybe we'll do 10 of those and turn that into a show, and be an adjusted thing, because we were concerned that we wouldn't have enough people in an audience. Our show really requires at least, I think, the number of people we're going to have this for the laughter. You just need a certain number of people for laughter to generate. It's just it's an equation. I've done comedy shows before for 8 people. It's not pleasant. You can be very
funny.
funny.
A lot of those, haven't you?
I have.
For about 8. Yeah.
I have. Thank you very much. Just mute that. So, you know, you want to be concerned. Like part of the initial thought when you're putting a show together is, what is the space I'm going to have, and what are the bodies that are going to be there? What is their perspective? And then I basically say, can we get away with it? And in this case, I was very happy to get the note that we were going to be able to do a more traditional show, and we're really looking forward to that. But yeah, we've had to make some sacrifices. I'm always trying to think a little bigger because I love to go big and stupid. If we had a full audience and a full, like, I probably would have had another handful of people drop in to do other things in the show because that's fun to do. But we've kind of had to keep it lower key, and we certainly will be working when we're meeting in the next 3 weeks to do our choreography and whatnot, and we'll be considering like where we're at on stage and what we're doing. But outside of the presentation, like the space is already safe for us, so we're gonna do the show, and I think people will quite enjoy it.
So has anyone been doing any more creative work on their own? Anything like that?
Well, I am sure, like everybody else, worked from home during the whole COVID thing, but I also, I guess I'm more of a musician originally at heart, and I found myself picking up some instruments that I never really did before, had the time to do or play, and I was playing the piano a whole lot more. So, I find especially for those of us who do theater, you need to have that creative outlet. I know the seasons were pushed back, but for me personally, I just needed to do something creative like that to, remain somewhat sane.
Right.
Dino, what about you?
Well, I mean, some plans did get pushed away, like traveling to France for a year for studying abroad.
Oh
but then again,
gosh.
which it is a bummer. But then again, with all like the music and theater stuff that's popping up now, all like the smaller and more local stuff where it's like you see a lot of your friends who are being more creative and doing a lot more work, and it's just fun being able to have time to like do small little passion projects that you've wanted to do for a while but just haven't had the time to do it. And now that everyone has so much more free time now and to put towards doing all this stuff, it's nice to see little theatery stuff popping up and little music stuff happening, and then being able to work on our own projects once in a while.
For sure. You mentioned briefly earlier about how you go about choosing your musicals to mash up based on just personal bucket list shows that you've wanted to do or songs that you really like. Is there anything else that goes into the decision-making process to figure out which musicals you're going to put together besides the stuff like that?
It starts with asking everyone, because this is kind of what I want it to be at first. Dayna has a great voice, and I'm sure there are songs that she's always wanted to sing. As a singer, there are always these things. Kizzy's done shows where you always see someone else doing a song. You're like, oh, I wish I could do that one too. Or you just get a chance. And Dino is newer to the game, being the youngest of the team. So, of course, there's a wealth of things. And then after that, I often just let it brew in my mind and kind of throw ideas out to say, what would be a good counterpoint to this? So Drew Murdoch, who's connected with all of us from our work back in Little Shop, he and Tegan are both enormous Rocky Horror fans.
Oh, we know. He talks about that work.
Yeah, most people are. Like the music, the Rocky Horror music is just so good. So we knew we wanted to throw some Rocky out there, and it's such an extreme show because of all of its takes. Mm-hmm. And we thought, what is the most and counterpointing, what is the most pure classical music show? And of course, the Sound of Music comes up, and then you think of Sound of Music, and I've got a Dayna who I know could already sing a Maria thing if I needed. Mm-hmm. I've got someone who looks like an admiral with Kizzy. I've got
Captain.
I've promoted you. Okay. And I've got a child in Dino, so
yes,
I mean,
our token child Dino.
But
to fill that role.
After that, it's just like I'll usually just sit around and improvise myself, like improvise some of the songs and think like, what if this song was sung with the other show's intention? And if you get a good line or two, you're like, yep, I'm keeping it. Mm-hmm. Because one of the things of the improv influence of this is that, like, once you get a good idea, don't say no to it, just go. And then later in the editing process, we refine it down. So, yeah, I mean, we and to be fair, we want to sell tickets. So we try to pick shows that the audiences are going to immediately look at and go, oh, I love that show. Like Hamilton is great music. And it helps that people just look at that image and go,
And
I know
people
that.
know Hamilton now more than ever because it's accessible on
Right.
Disney Plus.
Right.
You
Yep.
want to pick shows that the audience will recognize and be able to be in on the joke. In
Yeah.
the past, Scott, you've done a lot of strictly improvised shows, and those were
Yep.
always very successful. And now you've moved a bit towards the scripted stuff. But in general, the tone of the shows have remained the same. They're comical, musical
Stupid.
theater. Stupid is a word if you'd like to use it.
I do.
Why do
I use
you
it in the
think-
show.
Why do you think that shows like that resonate so well with audiences? You guys are able to sell out your Fringe shows almost every night, add chairs to the audience, not this year, but adding chairs last year to make sure we got as many people as possible in to see this show. Why do you think that people love this kind of comedy so much?
I think people enjoy coming to something when they feel that they're in on it and it feels like it's friendly. Like I often have gone to stand-up shows, and stand-up is it's a different talent entirely. And sometimes you'll see one stand-up guy and you'll be like, oh, I get this guy or gal, and I really get where they're coming from, and I feel like I'm part of their world. And then you'll have another person come up who will technically be equally as funny, but you'll sit there and be like, oh, I don't relate. They feel mean. And I can remember back to going to see my very first Fringe shows myself back in my early 20s and thinking how much I loved being in a house with a bunch of people who were just kind of goofing around on stage, but were still technically doing really good comedy, and that sort of loose, we're all in on it feeling. And I have always enjoyed that as part of the theater that I do, that sense of like, we're all poking a finger at something, and ha 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 ha, we're all in on the gag, and we can all laugh at this. And
yeah, it's sort of a shared experience kind of a thing where, with music and comedy, everyone in the audience is there feeling the same thing, in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas with something more dramatic, it's very internalized. Like, the people beside you might be crying, but you don't know because you're watching the show.
Yeah.
But you can hear everybody laughing and sing along with the music and feel it.
And comedy and I think musicals are, there's genres that are universally appealing. If you're going to go to the theater, you want to go and, kind of sit back, and with especially in this day and age with the whole COVID thing, you want to go somewhere and have some fun and kind of forget about your worries and be captivated. And I think that's what we try to do.
Because all of you are returning artists, what is it about the Fringe and the experience that you have at the Fringe that keeps you coming back, keeps you reapplying for that lottery and hoping that you get in, and you keep creating these shows and bringing them to us every year? What is it about being in the Fringe that is so important and so special to you?
Dino, go.
Well, for me, it's being able to see so much talent from everywhere else. It's going to be a little less this year just because COVID and everything, not being able to have people coming from further out with like some of the national shows that we had come in last year. I think we had a couple folks who came up from the States too. But it's just nice seeing so many folks coming in and seeing so much talent, because for someone who's only just starting my theater and music kind of, not career, but just music and theater life, it's amazing seeing how so many folks who've been in it for decades now and are still just as passionate and just as willing to put on shows and just do great things and bring great talent to the community. I just love seeing it, and I love coming back each year for it.
I agree with you, Dino, and I love that it's like a buffet of theater. You can pick and choose each night what you want to see. You don't feel like, oh, I only have a certain amount of time to see one show. You can back them up. We sometimes run out of, after we do our show, or meet before and see other people's shows. So it's just a nice smattering of theater.
If this is a buffet of theater, we're definitely the sweet and sour chicken balls. Oh, I have too many of these on my plate. Why did I take so many of these?
They're
sickening. They're sickening.
There's, and also there's just a real sense of camaraderie, of community. Like you're in this cool family as part of Fringe, and I felt that as a volunteer a few years ago, and and even more so now that I have this kind of close knit family with this with this team. But you still, like, everyone makes you feel that you're just such a part of something that's bigger and really cool. I love that.
So that concludes all of my prepared questions, but if there's anything that any of you guys wanted to add to the end of this before we sign off and let Dayna drive away in her beautiful convertible.
I just like to reiterate something that Scott said about just getting out there and trying it. Obviously it's too late now to apply for this year's Fringe, but start thinking about what you can do for next year, and just get out there and try it. And I'm so fortunate to have a friend in Scott that I will be in any show that Scott ever asks me to be in, because he's so fun to work with, and he's so energetic and smart about shows. And not everybody has a friend like Scott, so I really
that's a corner of paper I'm poking my eye.
It's an uncomfortable thing for a lot of people to just get out there and do it. So if you can just take the leap and give it a try, you won't get let down.
Yeah, I agree with you, Kizzy. And oopsie. And if that is too much, if that's too much, then starting by being a volunteer is a really good first step.
Exactly. Like, I saw some shows last year I usually get so tired from doing shows, it's hard to get around and see some, because I'm not the young buck I once was. But
that's what Dino's for. Dino is you send Dino to see the show.
Yeah, well, and you should when you're your guys' age, you and when you're our age too, but especially when you're young, you should see everything that you can and read everything you can and get critical in whatever ways you want to about it, because it's the only way to develop a voice. If all you have are people telling you what's good, then you end up with no voice of your own, and it's important. We like to go out and have fun, and we're going to start meeting this week for rehearsals, and I'm very excited to put this goofery together, and there'll be the normal collection of things we have to sand out and polish, but we're going to have a fun time. The audience is going to laugh, and we're going to create a little bit of laughter in a big sea of stress for 2020. It'll be nice to do that.
All right. Well, with that, thank you guys all so much for joining us this afternoon to chat, mostly Scott to chat. Just being here.
God, I did it again.
We really look forward
Kennedy.
to seeing. Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for having us and chatting with you.
Yes, it's nice. I got to come in. No one else is here. Just me in the space, and now I'm gonna go play with stuff to see if Brian notices tomorrow.
He'll notice.
Oh yes, he'll notice. But yeah, thank you guys. We're really looking forward to seeing your show and seeing how successful it will be this year compared to last.
Now I'm imagining you guys all moving all of Brian's desk outside and setting it all up exactly as it is. Yeah. Please do that. Put it out in the parking lot.
Brian's like the Dwight Schrute of...
I'm sure I didn't do this.
The theater company.
Oh. All right. Well, enjoy
Thanks,
the
Kennedy.
rest of your day. Enjoy recovering from your vacation, Scott. Enjoy the rest of your vacation, Dayna.
One day you'll know, Kennedy. One day you'll know the tiredness.
Well, I'm getting ready to move across across Atlantic Canada at the end of the summer. So
that's exciting.
Good luck.
Love the bubble because I get to go back to school without any barriers in place. Yeah, so that's great.
Good.
But yeah, I hope you guys have a good time.
Okay, thanks so much.
Okay, great.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.